Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going deep on a story that's been making some waves in the cybersecurity world.
Yeah, definitely causing some ripples.
Yeah, it's the shutdown of this thing called CIPAC, the Critical Infrastructure Partnership Advisory Council.
Right.
And you might not know what that is off the top of your head, but just to give you a quick idea,
Right.
it's this council that basically helped the government and private companies work together,
Hmm.
to try to keep our most important stuff safe.
Exactly.
Power grids, water systems, all that, all the really essential services.
Right. Those things we just take for granted until they're not working. Right.
Totally, totally.
Yeah, and to your point, SIPAC was this really, really important way to get people talking and collaborating to protect all of that.
And now that it's gone, there are a lot of people who are, well, kind of freaking out, to be honest.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I
Yeah.
mean, this was the central place for all the experts to come together, both from the government and from all the different parts of the economy.
Hmm.
Energy, healthcare, transportation, you name it. They'd share information about threats, figure out ways to handle those risks, really try to get ahead of things.
So it was kind of like the main hub for cybersecurity where everyone could, swap notes, strategize, all that.
Yeah, exactly. Think of it like a team huddle before a big game.
Okay, I like that.
You got to have those huddles to make sure everyone's on the same page, right? And that's especially crucial when about 90% of those critical things we're talking about, like your power grid and stuff, are owned by private companies.
Wow, 90%. I didn't realize it was that much.
It is. It is. So you can see why having this kind of direct line between the government and those private companies was so vital.
Makes total sense. So shutting down SciPac, is it kind of like if suddenly those players on the field couldn't talk to each other during the game anymore?
That's a good way to put it, yeah. And what's even more concerning is, well, we don't actually know why it was shut down.
You're kidding.
Nope. The Department of Homeland Security, DHS, they just kind of did it. No real explanation given.
Seriously.
Seriously. And that's made a lot of folks in the industry, and even some lawmakers, pretty nervous.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, not knowing why something like that happened,
Mhm.
it's got to make you wonder what's going on behind the scenes, right?
Absolutely. And speaking of lawmakers, Congressman Andrew Garbarino, he's a big name in cybersecurity on the House side.
Right, I've heard of him.
He's pretty concerned about all this, too. He's actually planning on grilling DHS about it, wants to know the reasoning behind this whole thing.
Good. Someone needs to get to the bottom of it.
Oh,
So before we get into all the potential fallout from this shutdown, I think it'd be helpful to just unpack SciPac a little bit more. Like, how did it actually work in practice?
sure. Think of it as this sector partnership model. It brought together, councils from both sides, the government, but also these different sectors of the economy. Like you'd have your energy folks, healthcare, transportation, all those different groups. Then you also had these cross-sector groups that would focus on issues that touch, multiple industries.
Gotcha. So it was like all these different teams within the larger team, basically.
Exactly. And SIPAC provided the playbook for all these teams to interact,
Okay.
to share information, work on those solutions together. Really a collaborative effort.
And now that playbook's gone.
Yeah,
And we've got to figure out what the next play is, right?
exactly. And especially when you consider that cyber threats, they're not standing still. It's like they're constantly coming up with new plays of their own.
Oh, totally. It's like a never-ending game of cat and mouse. But before we go too far down that road, I do want to go back to something you said about the lack of transparency around this whole shutdown. I mean, it really is concerning. It makes you wonder, what's the plan here?
Right. What's the next step? And the truth is, we don't know. And that lack of clarity, it just adds to the anxiety that a lot of people are feeling right now.
For sure, for sure. I mean, without knowing why SciPac was shut down, it's tough to even begin to figure out what the impact might be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it underscores the importance of taking cybersecurity into your own hands, so to speak. And there are companies out there like StoneFly that really specialize in that. I mean, they provide all sorts of solutions for businesses, things like secure data storage, backup solutions, all that. And it's stuff that can really help you, protect your business, even if there isn't this big central coordinating body like SIPAC anymore.
Okay, that's interesting.
Right. You got to be prepared. You got to have your own game plan.
For sure. And I actually was just reading about StoneFly the other day, and they do seem to offer a whole bunch of services that are, tailored to different needs. I mean, they do data encryption, threat detection, even disaster recovery planning. They seem to really understand that, in today's world, you've got to have a plan for what happens if the worst case scenario actually happens.
Yeah. Exactly. And that kind of peace of mind, it's invaluable.
Totally. But before we get too deep into that, I want to go back to this whole thing about CIPAC shutting down and the lack of transparency. I mean, it really has raised a lot of eyebrows.
Oh, yeah. And for good reason. I mean, without clear communication about, what led to this decision, it's almost impossible to figure out like what the full impact is going to be or,
Mm.
what's going to replace it. Is there even going to be anything to replace it?
Right. And what about all the work that CIPAC was doing? Just gone.
Well, we don't know for sure, right? But it's certainly a big question mark hanging over everything.
Yeah, and that's a pretty unsettling feeling.
No doubt about it.
Okay, well let's take a quick break and then we'll come back and dig into some of the potential consequences of CIPAC shutting down. We'll talk more about what it all means for cybersecurity going forward. Stick with us.
Sounds good. So where were we? Oh, yeah, the big question mark.
Right, the big question mark hanging over cybersecurity now that CIPAC is gone. So let's talk about that. What are people, the experts in the field, how are they most worried about now?
Well, one of the biggest things is just like communication. Like, before you had this formal way for the government and private companies to talk to each other, share what they knew about threats, vulnerabilities, best practices, all that good stuff.
Right.
And now, who knows? There's a real risk that like important intel just won't get to the right people at the right time.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Is like they all spoke the same language before, right? Now they're trying to have this super important conversation, but they can't understand each other.
Right, exactly. And when you can't communicate, you can't really coordinate, right? So what happens is like everyone's cybersecurity gets weaker. Like imagine there's this huge vulnerability in a piece of software that, like everyone uses.
Oh yeah.
Before, SIPAC would have been there to like quickly spread the word. Everyone would know about the threat, get those patches out, mitigate the risk, all that. But now
Mm.
it could take way longer, more time for bad things to happen.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
It is. And it just highlights how important it is for everyone to be working together. Cybersecurity, it's a team sport, really.
Totally. So what you're saying is companies can't just sit around and wait for the government or some other group to save them. They got to be proactive, right? Take their own security seriously.
Exactly. And that's where a company like StoneFly comes in. They've got all these data protection solutions that are designed to like really help businesses, any size, really.
Mm.
They help you keep your information safe, even if there's no, central coordinating body like CIPAC around anymore.
You keep mentioning StoneFly, and I'm actually getting really curious. Can you give me like a concrete example of how they would help with this whole SciPac situation?
Absolutely. Okay, so let's say there's a company, right? They're worried about hackers going after their like super sensitive data, customer info, financial records, maybe even like top secret stuff they've been working on.
Right, the crown jewels.
Exactly. So StoneFly can come in and they offer a whole bunch of services, right? Data encryption, threat detection, you name it. They also have these super secure data storage solutions that are like fortresses for your data.
Okay, that's impressive.
And then on top of all that, they also specialize in backup and disaster recovery planning.
Which is what, like having a plan B if everything goes wrong?
Yeah, basically. So even if hackers do manage to like break in and steal something, you've got backups, you can recover fast, minimize downtime, all that. It's like, it's like having that spare key hidden somewhere safe just in case you lose your main one. Smart. So it's not just about like reacting after something bad happens. It's about preventing it in the first place too.
Exactly. StoneFly, they're all about being proactive. They'll help you find those weak spots in your system, and then they'll help you come up with ways to strengthen them. Make it a lot harder for the bad guys to get in.
That sounds super helpful, especially for companies that maybe don't have, a whole team of cybersecurity experts on staff. It's like having a trusted advisor in your corner, someone to help you make the right decisions and stay ahead of the bad guys.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that even without, SciPac, there's still resources out there for businesses. You just got to, be proactive. Do your research. Find those experts you can trust. I like it. Okay, so we've talked a lot about businesses, what they can do, but what about the government? I mean, Congressman Garbarino, he's been pretty vocal about his concerns over this whole CIPAC thing, and he said he's going to talk to the administration about it. So what do you think? Is there a chance that like a new collaboration model could come out of this?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I mean, it's good to see that, lawmakers are taking this seriously. They're starting to understand just how important it is for the government and private companies to work together on cybersecurity. I mean, we need both sides to be strong if we're going to win this fight. So, yeah, I think there's hope. It's too early to say what those partnerships might look like, but at least people are starting to have that conversation.
That's reassuring. Okay, so the future of government-industry collaboration, it might be a little fuzzy right now, but it sounds like there's at least a glimmer of hope. But in the meantime, what should businesses do?
Well, like we've been saying, they need to take charge of their own security, find those resources, find that expertise, and make sure they're doing everything they can to protect themselves.
Makes sense. So before we move on, I just want to say, we've been talking about StoneFly a lot, and I think it's worth repeating for our listeners. If you're interested in learning more about what they do, they have a website, right?
Yeah, it's www.stonefly.com.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And they have a team of experts there too who
Yeah.
can answer questions and help you figure out what you need, right?
Exactly. And you can also reach out to them directly at sales@stonefly.com if you want to, just get right down to business.
Awesome. Good to know. So we've covered a lot of ground today, but this is really just the beginning, right? I mean, cybersecurity, it's a huge topic. There's always something new to learn, new challenges to face.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a conversation that, we need to keep having because the threat landscape, it's not going to get any easier, that's for sure.
No, it's not. Okay, so as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what are the main takeaways you want our listeners to remember?
Well, I think the first one is this. Cybersecurity, it's not just the government's problem, it's everyone's problem. Every single business, big or small, it doesn't matter. They need to be proactive, take steps to protect their data and their systems.
Right. It's like brushing your teeth. You got to do it every day if you want to stay healthy.
Exactly. Good analogy. And the second takeaway, collaboration. Even though things are changing, we still need to find ways to work together, to share information, share best practices, all that.
Yeah.
Because we're stronger together,
Oh,
right?
totally. And last but not least,
Don't be afraid to get help. There are experts out there like StoneFly who can help you navigate all this. They can help you develop a plan, put those solutions in place, and really make a difference in how secure your business is.
great advice. It's always good to know where to turn for help, especially when you're dealing with something as complex and honestly as kind of scary as cybersecurity can be.
It's true, it can be a little overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. But, you know, the more we talk about it, the more we understand it, the less scary it becomes. Yeah,
Exactly. Knowledge is power, as they say.
totally.
Yeah.
And speaking of knowledge, I think it's worth mentioning StoneFly again. I mean, we've been talking a lot about, how important it is for companies to take their cybersecurity seriously,
Yeah.
especially with all this uncertainty around CIPAC and what's going to happen next.
Right.
And it seems like StoneFly really gets that. They're like
Yeah.
all about helping businesses get their defenses in order no matter what the future holds.
Yeah, I mean, they're not just selling products. They're really trying to help companies create these like comprehensive cybersecurity strategies.
Yeah. It's funny. We've spent a lot of time talking about, how bad it is that the government and private companies might not be sharing information as well anymore.
Right.
But it kind of seems like companies like StoneFly, they can actually help fill that gap.
You're right. I mean, they're out there, they're seeing what the threats are, they're coming up with new solutions all the time, and they're working directly with businesses, to actually put those solutions into practice.
Yeah, exactly. They're not just
Yeah.
like talking about it. They're in the trenches getting it done.
Yeah, they're like a knowledge hub.
Yeah.
They're taking all that threat intel, all those trends, and they're making it into something that businesses can actually use.
It's like, remember how we were talking about CIPAC being that central hub for information?
Yeah.
It's like StoneFly is doing that same kind of thing, but on a smaller, more focused level.
Exactly. They're creating that same kind of collaborative environment, but they're doing it in a way that's, you know, tailored to each specific business they work with.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be really valuable for companies, right? It's not just about, buying some software or whatever. It's about having access to that deep knowledge and support.
It is. It's like having a whole team of cybersecurity experts on call, ready to help you out whenever you need them.
That sounds amazing, especially for businesses that, maybe they don't have the budget to hire their own in-house security team.
Exactly. It's a game changer.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive here, I want to leave our listeners with some key takeaways. What are the most important things you want people to remember from this conversation?
Okay. Well, first and foremost, Cybersecurity, it's everybody's responsibility, not just the government, not just big companies. If you're a business, no matter how big or small, you got to be proactive. You got to protect your data, protect your systems. It's the world we live in now.
Truth.
And second, collaboration is key. Even though things are changing, like with CIPAC shutting down, we've got to find ways to keep talking to each other, sharing information, working together, because, we're stronger together. That's always true.
Preach. Couldn't agree more. So proactive, collaborative was the third thing.
The third thing is don't be afraid to ask for help. There are companies out there like StoneFly that can, they can guide you through this whole thing. They can help you figure out what you need, put those solutions in place, and just give you that peace of mind that, you're doing everything you can to stay safe.
Amazing advice. Seriously, thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. We hope you learned something, and hopefully you're feeling a little bit more confident about tackling those cybersecurity challenges out there.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And to our listeners, until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.